Hello, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use Apex Cloth, a plugin that you can get from NVIDIA. You can get it from their development website. I'll leave a link in that in the description. You have to apply, but majority of the time they don't even look at the application. They'll just give you it. So you can also get it in other ways if you really want to. So this is pretty much what we'll get. I'm going to use a cape for this example, but you can use any other. You could put a dress on the Minecraft character if you wanted to. So this is what we should get by the end of it. As you can see, it does it in real time. I believe you can do it on an AMD graphics card as well. It shouldn't matter, I think. But yeah, it does it in real time. It's a lot quicker than the inbuilt one. So yeah, let's just get started. So let me just delete all this. Okay, so if you already got a Minecraft character and you're gonna just follow on what I'm gonna do. So we're just going to start with a plane for this example. So create whatever you're going to create with it, and of course you're going to need a lot of segments. So I'm going to use a plane here, so I'm going to use about 30 segments, about ish. But you can increase that if you want. We're going to add a turbo smooth at the very end, which will make it even more segments. A lot more segments, so be careful how many segments you put in the beginning. So yeah, the higher segments you have, the better quality of cloth you're going to get, but it also can be very bad sometimes if there's way too many. So I'm just going to put this up here. Now it's up to you how you position your cape or how you're going to do it, but it's usually a good idea to actually do it from an angle so it's not directly going downwards, if you're going to do a cape, that is. So I'm just going to use a FFD to widen the bottom. I'm using local scale just to widen the bottom. I'm going to use FFD 2x2x2, which is quite useful. So onto the NVIDIA bit. So you should get a toolbar. Whoops. A toolbar probably isn't already on your toolbar, but if it isn't, you can just drag it onto it, the top. So you'll probably get a box like this. So I'm just going to drag mine back in now. So first things first, you're going to try and add the Apex cloth, which is this symbol here. I don't know if it's changed in later or earlier versions, but as you'll see, it'll say that you need a skin on it, which is what you need to do. So it's up to you if you want to use a bone or an object. I'm going to use a bone. I'm going to use a box actually, because sometimes if you're going to attach the other bone to another bone, like I'm going to do here for the spine, sometimes it bugs out and your bone controls the spine, which is not always good. So I'm just going to create a box. Doesn't really matter what size it is. You might want to right click object properties and turn off renderable, because you don't want it to be seen. So I'm just going to move this up, maybe use the align tool, align it to the spine. Just going to move it all the way up here, and also using the link tool, which you probably can't see, but it's right at the top left corner. You can use that and drag that onto the spine. Oh. Drag it onto the spine. Actually, wrong spine. Right, okay, there you go. Yeah. And after you've got your bone or your box ready, just click on your cape or whatever cloth usage you're going to use, and go to modify list. Actually, if you've used an FFD, right click and convert it to an editable polygon, because it could be an issue. So modifier list and add a skin modifier, and then under the bones category, under the parameters, add your box, which I'm going to call cape box just for now. So add that to your options. Oops, didn't add it. And that's pretty much what you have to do for the skin bit. You don't need to do anything else for that. So again, click on that create clothing option on your NVIDIA APEX toolbar, and it should work now if you've got a skin modifier on it and a bone connected to it. And it should probably look like this. You may want to turn all that yellow stuff off, so you just in the visualization turn physical mesh off. It's up to you. And maybe physical mesh wire as well. So from here on now, this is completely Apex. So first things first, if you press on the play button, nothing's gonna happen. It's just gonna stay still. So to fix that is you go into paint attributes, which you may not actually be able to see, so I'm gonna move this out. So paint attributes, and it should be here. So the channel value, so we're already going to be max distance as the default, which is how far the cloth can go from where its original position is, and at the moment it's at 0, so when we press play on the simulation it's not going to move. So what we need to do is change that channel value option to something like 30 or something. Depends how far you want the cloth to move from its original position. So once you've done that, you click on the flood, and that'll flood every vertex on the cloth object to become 30 on the max distance, and you should get loads of these little red lines. Now if you press the play button again, you'll see it now drops and might hit the grid floor, which if it does, then that's good. So as you can see, it does that, but you don't want it to fall. You might not want it to fall. You might want it to, but if you don't, you want it to have something connected to, say, hook the top bit onto the neck so that the rest of it drops but not the top. What you need to do is to use the paint tool, which is right underneath the flood button. So if we turn this on, you'll get a little paint icon on the plane, as you see here. And before we use it, yours is probably going to be a lot bigger than mine here. So you need to go into the settings, just right beside the paint, and change the max size down to something like 5, so that it's this small. And after you've done that, change the channel value to 0. So as long as we don't press the flood button, it won't do anything. So instead we're going to paint that channel value 0 onto some of these vertices. So I'm just going to the top line. So I'm just going to hold down the left mouse button, and as you see, I've taken away those red lines on the very top cape. You may also get a visualization of it in the viewport as well. So after you've done that, untick the paint and press the play button, and it should work. As you can see. Now, I didn't change mine to high enough flood to be fully effective, so I'm just going to quickly change that to 50, flood it, then paint 0 back on the top line. So if you've done a cape, you're probably going to notice that it goes right through your Minecraft character, which of course is not what you want to do. Also, you may want to make sure you don't paint 2 vertices here, or else it's going to look a bit weird. So you might want to fix that. So I'll quickly change this. There you go. Okay, so to fix this, you can either create another object or you can use the bones. So for my example, I'm going to use the bones, but this will work for if you got just an object of some sort. So as I'm going to need to make sure that it can't go through my spine, I'm going to click on the bone for my spine here, and there's going to be an options here. Now you're going to have three options here. You're going to have select dynamic rigid body, set selected as kinematic rigid body, or static rigid body. It's probably going to be a dynamic rigid body at default, so just hold down and change it to kinematic rigid body. The reason you don't want to use a static object for this is that the object that we're going to be using is going to be animated, so we want to make sure that it remembers it's being animated and it needs to move with it. If you've got just a static physical rigid body, it will stay wherever it is no matter how much of it's animated. So with a kinematic, it will remember the animation. If it's dynamic, on the other hand, it will be affected by gravity, but with kinematic, it will remember all its animated keys, and static will just stay solidly in one position the entire time. So with that now on whatever you're using, it's up to you how you're going to do this. You could be using a sphere, so you may want to use just convex or sphere option in the mesh type, which is under physical meshes, with the object selected. But for what we're doing here, for this example, I need to change it to a box. So I'm going to change it to a box. Now, there's a reason why I didn't choose the actual mesh of the object for the skin of the chest. It's because it's using its own skin, and for some reason, NVIDIA doesn't work very well with rigid bodies on an object that's being morphed. So the best way to fix that is just to use the spines that are controlling that object. So for my example, I'm going to need to change the width to 20, because it's 2010 in height of 30. So I'm just going to change this to 10. As you can see, it's now the box is filled the lower half of the box here. So you could do the same for the whatever other object that you think is going to become in contact with the thing. So just go onto the kinematic object with the object selected, and then change the box, and then change that. And if I was to press play now, as you can see, it won't go through it, which is good. That's exactly what we wanted. It may go through it slightly, so you may want to inflate it even more than just the insides of it. So you may want to change to something like 22 by 12, just to be 100% sure, because that can also be an issue. As you see, it's not gone through it now. You may need to do it to the legs as well. So I'll just quickly show you on one of the legs. It's pretty much the same as you would do it on any of the other objects. You just change the box. Make sure you're in local view for your position. And just change it to whatever you need it to be. And for our example here, it would be a good idea to move it up. So to do that, under the physical rigid body, press on the plus sign and go down to mesh transform, and then we now can move this mesh box around the spine up. So I'm just going to move it up here and maybe increase the length a tiny bit, so I'm going to 18 might do. And then just keep testing it. It's so quick that there's no really any reason not to keep trying and tweaking it. So as you can see, that pretty much works really well. So you're probably going to be wondering about, well, it goes back to being a solid after you've done the preview simulation. So to fix that, you just need to go into the options, and I'll move this over again because it has to be the one box on the other side of the recording. So to bake this, because now that you've 100% made sure that the animation for the cloth is exactly what you want it to be, you're going to want to bake it into the cloth. So to do that, you need to go down to baking cloth, which happens to be the very last menu, or second last menu in the options for the cloth. So I have the cloth selected. You can go down to baking clothing and just press on the bake to vertex animation, and it will start baking it. So if I go through this now, as you can see, it's now 100% baked in, which is great. So the only problem with this is every time you load the animation, it's not going to have that file. It won't be baked in. So to do that, go back down to the baking clothing again, and after you've done the bake vertex animation, you're going to want to save the file. So save the animation file in the location that you know. So that's one way of keeping what you've just baked into the animation there every time you open the file. There's also another way of fixing that, and that's to use go to modifier list and add a point catch, which I believe will work. This. So with that, you just click on the new point catch. This will record all the vertices through the whole animation timeline. So just pressing on the new, let's just save whatever it is. You then want to record it. So on the record option here, just click on the record, and it will record it. So that's it. So as you can see, I've just removed the Apex cloth and it's still working. So you could remove all that if you want to do. And the only good thing with using this instead is, for starters, it works with using a render farm if you happen to be using one. And also, it tends to remember to use this file every time you open the scene file. So every time you open it, it will already have loaded that file with it. So that's the one good thing of using this. So another one thing before I finish this tutorial is you also might want to make it thicker. Which, to do that, you go to modifier list and then add a shell modifier, and then you can increase it on the outer or the inner, depending on what you really want it to do. Another reason you might want to do that is because it might yeah, if you're going to use a shell, I'd recommend you do it before the point catch, or if you're not going to use the point catch, make sure you can put it on the shell afterwards. But if you're going to use the point catch, I'd recommend you add the shell before you do the point catch, because it looks like you can't add it afterwards. So yeah. So after you've done all that, you're going to probably want to so yeah, I'll just quickly show you the shell on it. So yeah, if you're going to add the point catch, add it after you've added the shell, or else it won't work. So you can see it's still using the shell with the animation here, as you can see. And another reason you might want to use this is it also covers up those little areas where the cloth happened to go through the object, which can also be helpful. And the last thing you're going to want to probably add is a turbo smooth. So just press it on the T button on the modifier list and then find turbo smooth, and it will smooth it out, as you can see. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. So yeah, there's another reason why you might want to use a point catch also, is because the material may not, if you're going to use a material on it other than just a plain color, using a point catch, if you're using just the Apex cloth on it, it won't work with a material that has like a pattern in it, because it hasn't got any UV coordinates on it, so that when it moves, the texture is not following it. It's just projecting it onto it. So using point catch would also fix that issue. So if you ever have that issue where you happen to have a pattern on it, and the pattern doesn't seem to follow the cape with when it's simulated, use a point catch. That will fix that. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I hope you found it useful. If you've got any questions, just leave it in the comments, and I'll try and answer them. I'll leave the link to the website, NVIDIA's website for this plugin. You just have to apply for it. They usually give it to people. So thanks for watching. If you got any questions, yeah, just leave it in the comments. So goodbye.